Imagine a winter fair in Chicago, the air thick with the scent of hot cocoa and pine, snowflakes swirling under strings of golden lights. The crowd hums with laughter, children darting through the stalls, their mittens clutching candy canes. Michael Lancaster, a billionaire whose name echoes through the city's skyscrapers, stands at a booth, his tailored coat dusted with flour from a playful toss by a vendor. He's not the untouchable tycoon tonight, just a man, his breath fogging in the cold, his eyes scanning the crowd for something he can't name. Then, a child's laugh cuts through the noise, sharp and clear, like a bell in a storm. Michael turns, and there he is, a boy, no more than 6, chasing a snowball, his hazel eyes catching the light. Those eyes. They stop Michael cold, rooting him to the ground. They're his eyes, down to the faint crescent scar above the brow, a mark from a childhood fall he's never forgotten. Before he can move, a woman steps forward, her voice soft but firm. "Ethan, slow down." She kneels, brushing snow from the boy's coat, her dark hair falling over her face. Michael's heart lurches. He knows her. Elena. Older now, her features sharpened by time, but unmistakable, the curve of her jaw, the way her lips part when she's worried. She looks up, and their eyes lock. The world falls silent. The fair, the laughter, the snow, it all fades. "Michael," she whispers, her voice trembling, not with joy but with something heavier, something that makes his chest tighten. Ethan tugs at her sleeve. "Mama, who's that?" Michael kneels, his knees sinking into the snow, his gaze fixed on the boy. Ethan's face is a mirror, a ghost of his own childhood photos, the ones his mother used to keep in a silver frame. "Who are you?" the boy asks, innocent but piercing. Michael's throat closes. He wants to speak, to demand answers, but his voice betrays him. Elena's eyes glisten, not with tears but with a storm of emotions, anger, fear, maybe regret. "We need to go," she says, pulling Ethan close, her movements sharp, protective. Michael reaches out, his hand grazing her coat, but she steps back. "Don't," she says, her voice a blade. "Not now." She turns, guiding Ethan through the crowd, her silhouette swallowed by the sea of lights. Michael stands frozen, the snow soaking through his knees, his mind racing. Ethan. His eyes. Her words. It's impossible, yet undeniable. That boy is his. But how? When? Why didn't he know? The questions claw at him, each one sharper than the last. He clutches the edge of the booth, his knuckles white, as a memory flickers, a night 6 years ago, a storm, a woman stranded in the rain. Elena. It was her. But he left her a note, a number. He waited. Didn't he? The fair's lights blur as he stumbles forward, his polished shoes slipping on the ice. He scans the crowd, desperate for a glimpse of her scarf, her hair, anything. But she's gone. His phone buzzes in his pocket, a business call, no doubt, but he ignores it. Nothing matters except finding her, finding them. He pushes through the throng, his breath ragged, the cold biting his face. A vendor calls out, offering mulled wine, but Michael doesn't hear. He sees Ethan's face in every child, Elena's shadow in every woman. His mind spirals back to that night, the rain hammering his car, her shivering form on the roadside. He carried her to his mansion, her weight light in his arms, her eyes fierce even through exhaustion. They talked until dawn, her laughter warming the cold rooms of his life. He left her a note, his number scrawled in haste. But she never called. He waited weeks, then months, convincing himself it was a fleeting moment, nothing more. Now, those eyes, Ethan's eyes, tell him he was wrong. He reaches the edge of the fair, where the lights dim and the crowd thins. A wooden bench sits under a bare oak, snow piling on its slats. Michael sinks onto it, his hands shaking. The truth is a weight he can't carry. A son. A woman he let slip away. He pulls his coat tighter, but the cold is inside him now, a hollow ache that's been there for years, masked by boardrooms and bank accounts. He thinks of his life, penthouse suites, private jets, a legacy built on steel and ambition. Empty. All of it. He spent years chasing power, but tonight, power feels like a lie. The only thing real is the boy's face, the way Elena said his name, the way she walked away. He digs in his pocket, pulling out a small, worn object, a cufflink, its silver edge tarnished. He's carried it since that night, a relic of a moment he couldn't let go. Why? He never questioned it until now. A child's shout pulls him back. Not Ethan, just another boy, running with a sparkler. Michael watches the light dance, his mind drifting to the last time he saw sparks like that, fireworks at a wedding, 6 years ago. He was a guest, bored, until a server dropped a tray, her cheeks flushing as she scrambled to clean up. He knelt to help, their hands brushing, her shy smile catching him off guard. Elena. It was her, even then. He gave her the cufflink, a playful gesture, never expecting it to mean anything. But it did. It led to the storm, to the night that changed everything. And now, to this moment, where he's lost her again. He grips the cufflink, its edges biting into his palm. He's not the man he was then, careless, detached. He can't be. Not if Ethan is his. The snow falls heavier now, blanketing the fair in silence. Michael stands, his resolve hardening. He'll find her. He has to. Not as the billionaire who commands empires, but as a man who's made mistakes and won't make them again. He takes a step, then another, the lights of the fair fading behind him. The city stretches out, vast and unforgiving, but he knows she's out there, with their son. His phone buzzes again, but he lets it ring. The world of deals and deadlines can wait. This can't. He walks into the night, the cufflink in his fist, a promise to himself. He won't stop until he knows the truth, until he sees her face again, until he can look into Ethan's eyes and say the words he's only now beginning to understand. The snow of that Chicago winter fair fades into memory, and now we're somewhere else, 6 years earlier, under a sky heavy with rain. The city is a beast of neon and noise, its streets slick with water, reflecting the headlights of cars crawling through the storm. Michael Lancaster, younger then, his jaw sharper, his eyes colder, sits in the driver's seat of his sleek black sedan, the wipers slashing across the windshield. He's 29, a man who's already conquered boardrooms, his name a whisper of power in Chicago's elite circles. But tonight, he's restless, the weight of another deal, another victory, sitting hollow in his chest. The radio hums low, a jazz tune he doesn't care for, and he's about to switch it off when he sees her. A figure on the roadside, hunched against the rain, clutching a soaked folder to her chest. Elena. Though he doesn't know her name yet. Her coat is thin, her dark hair plastered to her face, and she's trembling, the kind of tremble that comes from more than just cold. Michael slows the car, his instincts warring. He's not the type to stop, his life is a straight line, no detours. But something about her, the way she stands defiant against the storm, pulls at him. He pulls over, the tires hissing on wet asphalt, and lowers the window. "You need help?" he calls, his voice cutting through the rain. She startles, her eyes meeting his, wide and wary, like a deer caught in headlights. For a moment, he thinks she'll run. But then she steps closer, her breath visible in the chill. "I'm fine," she says, though her voice shakes, and the folder in her arms is disintegrating, papers curling in the wet. Michael raises an eyebrow, unconvinced. "You don't look fine. Get in." It's not a question, and he regrets the edge in his tone the moment it leaves his lips. She hesitates, glancing down the empty street, then back at him. Something shifts in her expression, resignation, maybe trust, and she opens the door, sliding into the passenger seat. The car smells of leather and rain now, her presence a quiet intrusion. She's dripping, water pooling on the seat, but Michael doesn't care. He cranks the heat, the vents humming as he pulls back onto the road. Where to? He asks, keeping his eyes on the street. She's silent for too long, and when he glances over, she's staring at her hands, the folder now a soggy mess in her lap. I don't know, she admits, her voice barely above a whisper. My bus left. I was delivering something, and, she trails off, her fingers tightening around the folder. Michael feels a pang, unexpected and sharp. He's seen desperation before, on competitors, on clients, but this is different. It's raw, unguarded. You're not from here, he says, more to himself than to her. She shakes her head. Just moved. First week. Her lips twitch, almost a smile, but it's gone fast. He should drop her at a shelter, a station, anywhere but here. But the storm is relentless, the roads half flooded, and something about her, those fierce eyes, that quiet strength, makes him say, my place isn't far. You can dry off, figure out your next move. Her gaze snaps to him, suspicion flaring, and he raises a hand. No strings. I'm not that guy. She studies him, her eyes searching his face for a lie, and then she nods, a small, reluctant gesture. The drive is quiet, the rain a steady drumbeat, and Michael feels the weight of her presence, like a stone dropped into still water. He doesn't know why it matters, why he cares, but he does. His mansion looms at the end of a gated drive, its windows glowing against the storm. Inside, it's all marble and silence, the kind of place that feels more like a museum than a home. Elena hesitates at the threshold, her wet shoes squeaking on the floor. This is a lot, she says, her voice tinged with awe and unease. Michael shrugs, shedding his coat. It's just a house. He leads her to a guest room, hands her a towel and one of his shirts, too big, but dry. She disappears to change, and he busies himself in the kitchen, heating water for tea, the mundane task grounding him. When she emerges, the oversized shirt dwarfing her frame, her hair still damp but no longer dripping, she looks less like a stranger and more like someone he could know. They sit by the fireplace, the flames casting shadows across her face. She cradles the mug, her fingers trembling slightly, and he asks, "What were you delivering?" She glances at the ruined folder, now discarded on a chair. Proposals. For a company. Lancaster Corporation. His company. He hides his surprise, leaning back. Small world. She laughs, a soft, bitter sound. Yeah. I thought it'd be my big break. Instead, I'm here. There's no self-pity in her voice, just fact, and he admires it more than he expects. They talk about her move from a small town, her dreams of owning a bakery, his world of contracts and power plays. She's sharp, unafraid to challenge him, and he finds himself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. The hours slip away, the storm raging outside, but inside, it's warm, alive. She tells him about her mother's recipes, the way flour dust feels like home. He tells her about his father, a man who built an empire but left no warmth behind. It's easy, too easy, and when the clock strikes 3, he realizes he doesn't want her to leave. But dawn is coming, and with it, reality. You can stay, he says, gesturing to the guest room. As long as you need. She shakes her head, her eyes soft but firm. I've got to keep moving. But, thank you. He writes his number on a slip of paper, pressing it into her hand. Call me. If you need anything. She nods, her fingers closing around the note, and he feels a pull, like gravity, urging him to stay closer. But he lets her go, watching as she steps back into the rain, her figure fading into the gray. Morning comes, and the mansion is silent again. Michael stands at the window, the note's absence a weight in his pocket. He waits for her call, checking his phone more than he'll admit. Days turn to weeks, and the silence grows heavier. He tells himself she's fine, that it was just a night, a moment. But her laughter lingers, her eyes haunt him, and he carries the cufflink from that wedding, her cufflink, without knowing why. He doesn't know she tried to call, that the number was wrong, a single digit off, a mistake that would cost them years. He doesn't know about the life growing inside her, the boy who would carry his eyes. Not yet. But the storm has passed, and the city hums on, unaware of the threads of fate now tangled, waiting to unravel. The rain of that stormy night 6 years ago dissolves into a different kind of gray, a softer, more suffocating haze that cloaks Chicago in the years that follow. Elena's world is not Michael's. It's not made of marble halls or private jets, but of cracked linoleum floors and the hum of a flickering fluorescent light in a cramped apartment. She's 26 now, her dreams of a bakery tucked away like a letter never sent, replaced by the relentless rhythm of survival. Her days are long, split between shifts at a diner where the coffee is bitter and the tips are scarce, and nights at a corner store, stocking shelves while the city sleeps. Her hands, once dusted with flour from her mother's kitchen, now bear the calluses of endless work, her fingers stained with grease and ink. But there's Ethan, her son, not yet 3, with eyes that mirror a man she tries not to think about. He's the light in her gray world, the reason she keeps going, even when her bones ache and her heart feels like it might break under the weight of it all. Her apartment is a single room, the walls thin enough to hear the neighbors' arguments, the air heavy with the scent of damp plaster and yesterday's dinner. A mattress sits in one corner, a blanket draped over it, Ethan's tiny form curled beneath, his soft breaths a metronome in the quiet. Elena sits at a wobbly table, a lamp casting a weak glow over a pile of bills, rent, utilities, daycare, each one a reminder of how close she is to the edge. She's learned to stretch every dollar, to skip meals so Ethan can have milk, to smile through exhaustion when he asks for a story. Tonight, he's asleep, his stuffed bear clutched tight, and she allows herself a moment to watch him, her chest tightening with a love so fierce it scares her. Those eyes, Michael's eyes, stare back at her in his sleep, a constant reminder of a night she can't forget, a man she can't forgive, even if she's not sure he's to blame. She reaches into a tin box under the table, her fingers brushing past old receipts and a faded photo of her mother until she finds it, a cufflink, silver and tarnished, its edges worn from years of being held, turned over, questioned. She closes her eyes, and she's back at that wedding, 6 years ago, a tray slipping from her hands, the crash of glass loud enough to make her want to disappear. Then Michael, kneeling beside her, his suit pristine, his smile unexpected. "Keep it," he said, pressing the cufflink into her palm, his voice warm, teasing. She laughed, her cheeks burning, not knowing that moment would lead to a storm, to a night of confessions by a fireplace, to a note with a number that didn't work. She tried calling, again and again, until the operator's voice became a cruel echo. He didn't want her. That's what she told herself, what she had to believe when she found out about Ethan, when she faced the truth of raising him alone. The cufflink is cold in her hand, but it anchors her, a piece of a life that might have been. She doesn't know why she keeps it, maybe because it's proof that night was real, that she wasn't just a shadow in his world. She thinks of Michael sometimes, late at night when the city is quiet, wondering where he is, if he's still the man who carried her through the rain, who listened to her dreams like they mattered. She sees his name in the papers, Lancaster Corp, mergers, skyscrapers, and it feels like a different universe, one she'll never touch. Yet Ethan's eyes, his laugh, the way he tilts his head when he's curious, they're Michael's, and they tether her to a past she can't escape. She doesn't hate him, not really, but there's a wound that hasn't healed, a question she can't answer. Why didn't he come back? Outside, the city hums, indifferent. Elena tucks the cufflink away, her movements careful, as if it might break. She checks on Ethan, adjusting his blanket, her fingers lingering on his cheek. He's growing fast, already asking questions she's not ready for. "Where's my daddy?" he asked last week, his voice small but insistent. She told him a story about a faraway place, a lie that felt like betrayal. She wants to give him everything, love, safety, a future, but the truth about his father is a weight she carries alone. She's thought about finding Michael, tracking him down, but what would she say? That she's the woman he forgot, that he has a son he never knew. The thought of his indifference, his rejection, stops her every time. She's built a life without him, fragile but hers, and she's not sure she can risk it falling apart. The lamp flickers, and she sighs, rubbing her eyes. Tomorrow, she'll work a double shift, then pick Ethan up from daycare, his tiny hand in hers as they walk home. She'll make him pancakes, his favorite, even if it means skipping lunch herself. She'll keep going, because that's what she does, what she's always done. But tonight, in the quiet, she lets herself feel the ache, the what-ifs that creep in when she's too tired to fight them. What if she'd called one more time? What if he'd answered? What if he'd cared? The cufflink sits in its box, a silent witness to her questions, and she closes the lid, pushing it back under the table. She stands, her shadow long against the wall, and checks the lock on the door. The city outside is a maze of lights and strangers, but inside, it's just her and Ethan, their world small but unbroken. She doesn't know Michael's out there, in his own gray world, carrying a matching cufflink, haunted by a memory he can't place. She doesn't know he's searched for her, his steps faltering in the years between, his life a series of deals that never fill the void she left. She doesn't know their paths are circling, drawing closer, that fate is weaving its threads through the city's chaos. For now, she's alone, her breath fogging the window as she looks out at the rain-soaked street, her heart heavy but steady. Ethan stirs, murmuring in his sleep, and she whispers, "I've got you," a promise she'll never break, no matter what the years bring. The gray haze of Elena's small apartment fades, and now we're in a different Chicago, 5 years after that stormy night, the city pulsing with the heat of a late summer evening. The streets are alive with the chatter of pedestrians, the hum of traffic, and the distant wail of a siren. Elena, now 29, moves through this world with a quiet resilience, her steps quick as she navigates the crowd, a bakery box balanced in her arms. She's no longer the diner waitress scraping by, she's found steadier work delivering pastries for a small bakery, a job that lets her breathe a little easier, though the bills still pile up. Ethan, almost 5, is at daycare, his laughter a memory that keeps her going through long hours. Tonight, she's delivering an order to a towering glass building downtown, Lancaster Corporation, the name etched in steel above the entrance. She doesn't let herself think about him. Not anymore. But fate has a way of ignoring plans. The lobby is a cathedral of marble and chrome, the air cool and sterile, a stark contrast to the sticky heat outside. Elena adjusts her grip on the box, her reflection flickering in the polished walls. She's dressed simply, jeans, a faded blouse, her hair pulled back, but there's a grace to her, a strength in the way she carries herself. The receptionist, a woman with a tight smile, checks the order. "Top floor," she says, handing Elena a pass. "They're expecting you." Elena nods, stepping into the elevator, the doors closing with a soft hiss. As it climbs, her stomach twists, not from the height but from the name on the box, Michael Lancaster. It's just a coincidence, she tells herself. He's a billionaire, untouchable, a name on skyscrapers, not the man from a rainy night. But her fingers brush the cufflink in her pocket, a habit she can't break, and her heart betrays her with a quick, unsteady beat. The elevator opens to a sleek office, all glass and sharp angles, the city sprawling below like a map of lights. A man in a suit, Michael's assistant, she guesses, takes the box with a curt nod. "Wait here," he says, disappearing through a door. Elena stands, her hands clasped, the cufflink pressing into her palm. She shouldn't be here, in his world, so close to a past she's tried to bury. But before she can turn, the door opens, and there he is. Michael. Older now, his features harder, his eyes carrying a weight she doesn't recognize. He's in a crisp shirt, sleeves rolled up, his presence commanding the room. He doesn't see her at first, his attention on a tablet, but then he looks up, and their eyes meet. For a moment, time stops. She sees it in his face, a flicker of recognition, quickly masked, like a shadow passing over water. "Delivery," she says, her voice steadier than she feels, gesturing to the box now on a table. Michael nods, his gaze lingering, searching her face. "Thank you," he says, his tone polite but distant, the voice of a man who's forgotten her. Or maybe he never remembered. She wants to leave, to escape the weight of his stare, but her feet stay rooted. He steps closer, signing a receipt, and his hand brushes hers as he hands it back. It's nothing, a fleeting touch, but it burns, pulling her back to that night, his fingers warm against her cold skin, his laughter filling the silence of his mansion. She pulls away, too quickly, and he frowns, his brow creasing. "Have we met?" he asks, the question soft but piercing. Elena's breath catches. She could say it, everything. That she's the woman from the storm, the one he left behind, the mother of his son. But the words stick in her throat, heavy with years of hurt, of raising Ethan alone, of dialing a number that never answered. "No," she lies, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just delivering." She turns, her steps quick, but his voice stops her. "Wait." She pauses, her back to him, her heart pounding. "You look familiar," he says, and there's a crack in his voice, a vulnerability she didn't expect. She glances over her shoulder, and for a moment, she sees the man from 6 years ago, the one who knelt to pick up her tray, who carried her through the rain. But that man is gone, replaced by this stranger in a suit, and she can't bridge the gap. "I get that a lot," she says, forcing a smile, and walks to the elevator. The doors close, and she leans against the wall, her breath ragged. She's shaking, not from fear but from the nearness of him, the way his eyes searched hers, as if he sensed the truth she wouldn't speak. Downstairs, she steps into the humid night, the city's noise crashing over her. She pulls the cufflink from her pocket, turning it over in her fingers. It's just a trinket, a piece of metal, but it's heavy with memory, the wedding, the storm, the note that failed her. She thinks of Ethan, waiting at daycare, his questions about his father growing sharper. She could have told Michael, could have changed everything, but what would it cost? Her pride? Her heart? She's not ready to find out. Back at the bakery, her coworker, Lila, notices her quiet. "Rough delivery?" Lila asks, wiping flour from her hands. Elena hesitates, then shakes her head. "Just a long day." Lila doesn't push, but her eyes are kind, and Elena wonders what it would be like to tell someone, to let the weight spill out. Instead, she clocks out, her steps heavy as she heads to pick up Ethan. The daycare is a small, cheerful place, and Ethan runs to her, his arms wide. "Mama," he calls, and she scoops him up, his warmth grounding her. "Tell me about your day," she says, and he babbles about crayons and a new friend, his voice a balm to her frayed nerves. As they walk home, the city lights blur, and Elena feels the cufflink in her pocket, a silent question. She doesn't know Michael's been staring at the bakery box, his fingers tracing the logo, a memory tugging at him. She doesn't know he's called his assistant, asking for the delivery records, a name, anything. She doesn't know their paths are no longer parallel but converging, pulling them toward a truth neither is prepared for. For now, she holds Ethan's hand, her world small but hers, and keeps walking, the weight of that almost meeting lingering like a storm on the horizon. The humid Chicago evening melts away, and now we're back in the crisp winter of 2025, just weeks before the fair where Michael saw Elena and Ethan. The city is a mosaic of frost and neon, its skyscrapers dusted with snow, their reflections shimmering in the icy streets. Elena, now 31, moves through this world with a quiet determination, her life a delicate balance of work and motherhood. She's no longer just a delivery girl, she's a shift manager at the bakery, her hands steady as she ices cakes, her smile warm for customers even when exhaustion pulls at her. Ethan, 5.5, is her anchor, his questions sharper now, his hazel eyes, Michael's eyes, searching her face for answers she's not ready to give. Tonight, she's at a gala, not as a guest but as staff, delivering a towering cake for a Lancaster Corporation event. The irony isn't lost on her, but she pushes it down, focusing on the task, on keeping her world steady. The gala is held in a grand ballroom, all crystal chandeliers and polished floors, the air thick with perfume and the clink of champagne glasses. Elena navigates the edges of the crowd, her black uniform blending into the shadows, the cake box balanced carefully. She's used to these events, to being invisible among the elite, but tonight feels different, heavier. She sets the cake on a velvet-draped table, her fingers brushing the cufflink in her pocket, a talisman she can't seem to leave behind. The room buzzes with laughter, the kind that comes from wealth and ease, and she keeps her head down, avoiding the gazes of men in tuxedos and women in glittering gowns. But then she hears it, a voice, low and commanding, cutting through the noise. Michael. She doesn't need to look to know it's him, but her eyes betray her, finding him across the room. He's at the center of a group, his suit impeccable, his smile practiced but not reaching his eyes. He's 35 now, his features carved by years of power, but there's a weariness to him, a shadow she didn't see 5 years ago when she stood in his office. She watches, frozen, as he gestures, his hands animated, the same hands that once held hers in the rain. Her heart twists, a mix of anger and longing she's never untangled. She should leave, slip out before he notices, but the cake needs to be presented, and her manager's voice crackles through her earpiece, urging her to stay. She straightens, smoothing her apron, and steps forward, her pulse loud in her ears. Michael's eyes catch hers as she approaches the table, the cake now unveiled, its tears gleaming under the lights. He's mid-sentence, but his words falter, his gaze locking onto her. The room doesn't stop, no one else notices, but for Elena, it's as if the chandeliers dim, the crowd fades. The cake, she says, her voice steady despite the storm inside, gesturing to the dessert. Michael nods, his expression unreadable, but his eyes don't leave her. Looks perfect, he says, and there's a softness to his voice, a question hidden in the words. She feels it, the pull of recognition, but she can't let herself fall into it. Thank you, she murmurs, stepping back, ready to disappear. But he moves closer, his presence like gravity, inescapable. Can you stay a moment? He asks, his tone casual but his eyes intense, searching her face as if piecing together a puzzle. Elena hesitates, her instinct to flee warring with the part of her that wants to know, does he remember? Does he feel it too? I'm working, she says, but her voice wavers, and he catches it, his brow creasing. Just a second, he insists, and before she can protest, he's guiding her to a quieter corner, away from the crowd. Her hand brushes his as they move, and it's like a spark, a memory of rain and warmth and promises unkept. She pulls away, her fingers curling around the cufflink in her pocket, grounding her. You were at my office, he says, his voice low, almost accusing. A few years ago. The delivery. Elena's breath hitches. He remembers. Not everything, but enough to make her heart race. Maybe, she says, her tone guarded, her eyes on the floor. He steps closer, and she can smell his cologne, the same scent from that night, sharp and clean. I don't forget faces, he says, and there's a crack in his voice, a vulnerability that makes her look up. His eyes are searching, desperate, and for a moment, she sees the man who knelt at the wedding, who carried her through the storm. But she's not that girl anymore, and he's not that man. You must meet a lot of people, she says, deflecting, her voice sharp to hide the tremble. He opens his mouth, then stops, his gaze dropping to her hands. She's holding a tray, and it slips slightly, her nerves betraying her. He reaches out, steadying it, his fingers brushing her wrist. Careful, he says, and the word is soft, intimate, like a memory. She freezes, the touch pulling her back to his mansion, to the fireplace, to the note that broke her heart. I'm fine, she says, pulling back, but his hand lingers, his thumb grazing her skin. Do you believe in fate? He asks, the question sudden, almost desperate. It's a line from that night, one she's replayed 1,000 times, and it hits her like a wave, stealing her breath. She stares at him, her resolve crumbling, the truth clawing at her throat. Ethan. Their son. She could say it now, end the silence, but fear stops her, fear of his rejection, of shattering the life she's built. "I have to go," she says, stepping back, her voice barely audible. She turns, weaving through the crowd, her heart pounding. Michael calls after her, but she doesn't stop, the gala's noise swallowing his voice. Outside, the cold air hits her, grounding her, and she clutches the cufflink, its edges biting into her palm. She doesn't know he's standing at the ballroom's edge, watching her go, his hand clenched around a pen, her face burned into his mind. She doesn't know he's already pulling out his phone, dialing his assistant, demanding they find the bakery's records, her name. For now, she walks into the night, Ethan's face in her thoughts, the weight of that almost confession pressing down, pulling her toward a truth she's not sure she can face. The winter chill of the gala night lingers, but now it's a few days later, still in the frosty grip of Chicago's 2025 winter. The city sparkles under a fresh layer of snow, its streets bustling with bundled-up commuters and the glow of holiday lights. Elena, 31, is back at the bakery, her hands dusted with powdered sugar as she kneads dough, her mind still reeling from the gala. Michael's voice, "Do you believe in fate?" echoes in her head, a ghost she can't shake. She's tried to bury it, to focus on Ethan, on the life she's carved out, but the cufflink in her pocket feels heavier now, a reminder of how close she came to spilling everything. Ethan, almost 6, is at school, his backpack slung over one shoulder this morning, his hazel eyes bright with questions about the world. She's his world, and she's determined to keep it that way, but Michael's reappearance is a crack in her carefully built walls. Today, she's called to the bakery's office, a rare summons that sets her nerves on edge. The owner, a gruff but kind woman named Rosa, hands her a folder. "Lancaster Corp wants us to cater a last-minute meeting," Rosa says, her tone clipped. "They asked for you specifically to deliver. Top floor, same as before." Elena's stomach drops. Michael. It has to be him. She wants to refuse, to plead a sick day, but Rosa's eyes are sharp, and the bakery's thin margins don't allow for no. "Fine," Elena says, her voice tight, and she takes the folder, her fingers brushing the cufflink in her pocket, a reflex she can't stop. The order is simple, pastries, coffee, but the weight of it feels like a summons to a trial she's not ready for. The Lancaster building looms as she arrives, its glass facade reflecting the gray sky. The lobby is as cold and grand as she remembers, and the elevator ride to the top floor is a slow ascent into a past she's tried to outrun. She clutches the delivery crate, her knuckles white, and when the doors open, she steps into the same sleek office, all glass and steel, the city a dizzying sprawl below. Michael's assistant, a young man with a hurried gait, takes the crate with a nod. "Mr. Lancaster wants to see you," he says, and before she can protest, he's gone, leaving her alone in the quiet. She stands, her heart racing, the cufflink a burning weight in her pocket. She could leave, slip out before he arrives, but her feet stay rooted, as if fate is holding her in place. The door opens, and Michael steps in, his presence filling the room. He's in a dark sweater, less formal than at the gala, but no less commanding. His eyes find hers immediately, and there's no mistaking the intensity in them, a mix of curiosity and something deeper, something that makes her breath catch. "You're the baker," he says, his voice low, almost testing. "From the gala." Elena nods, her throat dry. "Just delivering," she says, echoing their last meeting, but the words feel flimsy, a shield that's already cracking. He steps closer, his gaze never leaving her, and she feels exposed, as if he can see the years of struggle, the nights spent holding Ethan, the cufflink she's carried like a secret. "Thank you for coming," he says, and there's a warmth in his tone that throws her off, a softness she doesn't trust. He gestures to a chair, but she stays standing, her hands clasped tight. "I don't usually meet delivery staff," he continues, his eyes searching her face, "but there's something about you. I can't place it." Her heart lurches. He's close, too close, and she can smell his cologne, the same scent from that rainy night, sharp and clean, pulling her back to his mansion, to the fireplace's glow. "I'm nobody," she says, her voice sharper than she intends, but he shakes his head, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Nobody doesn't look at me like you do," he says, and the words are a spark, igniting a heat she's tried to bury. She wants to run, but his gaze holds her, and when he steps closer, she notices something, a cufflink on his sleeve, identical to hers, its silver edge catching the light. Her breath stops. It's impossible, yet there it is, a twin to the one in her pocket, a relic of a wedding, a storm, a night that changed her life. "Where did you get that?" she asks, her voice barely a whisper, pointing to his cuff. He glances at it, his brow furrowing, and for a moment, he looks as lost as she feels. "An old keepsake," he says, his fingers brushing the cufflink, his voice tinged with something like regret. "From someone I helped a long time ago." Her mind races. He kept it. All these years. The realization hits her like a wave, stirring a mix of hope and fear she's not ready to face. "Do you believe in fate?" he asks again, the same question from the gala, but now it's softer, almost pleading. She stares at him, the cufflink in her pocket burning, Ethan's face flashing in her mind. She could tell him now, about their son, about the note that failed, about the years she's carried alone. But the words won't come. Instead, she shakes her head, her eyes glistening. "I don't know what I believe," she says, and it's the truth, raw and unguarded. He steps closer, his hand hovering near hers, but she pulls back, the distance between them a chasm of years and secrets. "I should go," she says, turning, but his voice stops her. "Wait. Please." There's a crack in his voice, a desperation she doesn't expect, and when she looks back, his eyes are wide, searching, as if he's on the edge of remembering. She leaves without another word, the elevator doors closing behind her, her heart pounding. She doesn't know he's staring at the cufflink on his sleeve, his mind racing, fragments of that rainy night flickering like a half-forgotten dream. She doesn't know he's already pulling files, calling his team, demanding they track down the bakery's staff, her name. For now, she steps into the snowy street, the cufflink in her pocket a silent scream, Ethan waiting at home, the truth closer than ever but still out of reach. She walks, her breath fogging in the cold, the city's lights blurring, unaware that Michael's world is tilting, pulling them both toward a collision neither can avoid. The snowy Chicago street Elena walks down fades, and now it's a week later, the city still cloaked in winter's grip, its skyline sharp against a steel-gray sky. Michael Lancaster, 35, sits alone in his penthouse office, the vast glass windows framing a city he's conquered but never truly known. The room is stark, all sleek lines and polished surfaces, but tonight it feels like a cage. Papers are strewn across his desk, contracts, reports, none of them matching now. His fingers trace the cufflink on his sleeve, its silver edge worn from years of absent touches, a relic he's never understood but couldn't discard. Since the bakery delivery, since seeing Elena again, her face has haunted him, her eyes stirring memories he can't grasp. Her question, "Where did you get that?" echoes, a splinter in his mind, and he's starting to suspect the truth is bigger, heavier, than he's ready for. He leans back, his chair creaking, and closes his eyes. Fragments of that night 6 years ago flicker, rain on his windshield, her trembling form, the warmth of her laughter by his fireplace. He wrote her a number, left her a note. She never called. He told himself it was nothing, a fleeting connection, but the cufflink, her face, the way she looked at him in his office, they're pieces of a puzzle he's desperate to solve. His phone buzzes, a message from his assistant, * delivery records pulled. Name, Elena Marquez. No contact details, * Elena. The name hits him like a punch, unlocking something deep, a memory of her saying it softly, her voice raw after hours of talking. He slams his hand on the desk, the sound sharp in the silence. How could he forget her? How could he let her slip away? The door opens, and his longtime driver, Carl, steps in, his weathered face creased with concern. "You asked for the old logs, sir," Carl says, holding a thin folder. Michael nods, his jaw tight, and takes it. The logs are from 2019, records of his car's movements, a long-shot attempt to piece together that night. He flips through, his eyes scanning dates, times, routes, until he stops. March 12, 2019. Lake Shore Drive. Passenger pickup, 11:47 p.m. The night of the storm. His heart races as he reads Carl's handwritten note, young woman, stranded. Dropped at residence, 02 a.m. Michael looks up, his voice hoarse. Carl, do you remember her? The woman from that night? Carl hesitates, his eyes distant. Vaguely, sir. Dark hair, soaked through. You insisted on helping her. Said she was special. Special. The word cuts, and Michael's grip tightens on the folder. He stands, pacing to the window, the city's lights blurring below. She was at the gala, he says, more to himself than Carl. She delivered to my office. She knew about this. He holds up the cufflink, its silver glinting in the dim light. Carl's brow furrows. You've kept that all these years, he asks, and Michael nods, his throat tight. I didn't know why. Not until now. He turns, his voice urgent. Find her, Carl. Whatever it takes. I need to know who she is, where she is. Carl nods, but there's a weight in his eyes, a silent warning that some truths come at a cost. Alone again, Michael sinks into his chair, the cufflink in his palm. He closes his eyes, and the past rushes in, a wedding, 6 years ago, her shy smile as he handed her the cufflink, a playful gesture that felt like more. Then the storm, her weight in his arms, the way she challenged him, unafraid, her dreams of a bakery filling the cold rooms of his life. He sees her now, in his office, her eyes guarded, her voice sharp but trembling. She knew him. She remembered. And he didn't. The realization is a knife, twisting deep. He spent years building an empire, but what has he lost? A woman who saw him, really saw him, in a way no one else ever has. He opens a drawer, pulling out a small, worn notebook, his own, from years ago, a habit he's long abandoned. He flips through, his handwriting jagged, until he finds it, March 13, 2019. Met her. Elena. Don't let this one go, his breath catches. He wrote her name, a promise to himself, but the days that followed were a blur of deals, travel, ambition. He waited for her call, checked his phone obsessively, but when it didn't come, he buried the memory, convinced it was his fault, his failure. Now, he sees her face at the gala, the pain in her eyes, and he knows, she tried. Something went wrong, and he didn't fight for her. The cufflink glints, and he grips it, his knuckles white. There's more to this, he's sure of it. Her question about the cufflink, the way she pulled away, the weight in her voice, it's not just about that night. There's a secret, something she's hiding, and the thought sends a chill through him. What if she wasn't alone all these years? What if there's someone else, a life he's no part of? He stands, his resolve hardening, and dials his assistant. Get me everything on Elena Marquez, he says, his voice low, urgent. Address, workplace, anything. Now. He hangs up, his eyes on the city, its lights a map of possibilities and regrets. He doesn't know Elena's at home, tucking Ethan into bed, her fingers lingering on his cheek, his hazel eyes so like Michael's. He doesn't know she's pulled the cufflink from her pocket, staring at it under the dim light of her apartment, her heart torn between fear and longing. He doesn't know she's whispering to herself, he's remembering, her voice a mix of hope and dread. For now, Michael stands alone, the cufflink a lifeline to a past he's only beginning to understand, the truth a shadow just out of reach. The city hums below, indifferent, as he takes a step toward finding her, unaware of the storm waiting when he does. The gray Chicago skyline outside Michael's penthouse office fades, and now it's a few days later, the city still locked in the icy grip of 2025's winter. Snow falls in slow, heavy flakes, blanketing the streets, muffling the usual clamor. Michael Lancaster, 35, stands in the same office, but the air feels different, thicker, charged with a tension that's been building since he saw Elena's name in the delivery records. The cufflink sits on his desk, its silver edge catching the light, a silent accusation. He's barely slept, his mind a tangle of memories and questions, her face at the gala, her voice in his office, her question about the cufflink haunting him. He's pieced together enough to know she's not a stranger, not a fleeting moment, but the woman who changed him 6 years ago, the one he let slip away. But there's more, something she's hiding, and today, he's determined to find out what. His assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Claire, steps in, a folder in hand. Elena Marquez, she says, placing it on his desk. Address, workplace, basic history. She's private, almost invisible online. Michael nods, his jaw tight, and opens the folder. A photo slips out, grainy but clear, Elena, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes tired but fierce, standing outside a bakery. His chest tightens. It's her, unmistakably, and the sight of her grounds him, makes her real in a way she hasn't been since that rainy night. The folder lists her address, a modest apartment building in a working-class neighborhood, and her job at the bakery. No mention of a husband, a partner, but something else catches his eye, a daycare enrollment form, a child's name. Ethan. His heart stumbles. A son. She has a son. He stands, his hands shaking, and grabs his coat. Cancel my meetings, he tells Claire, his voice rough. All of them. She doesn't question him, sensing the storm in his eyes, and he's out the door, the cufflink in his pocket, its weight a tether to the truth. The drive to Elena's apartment is a blur, the city's snow-dusted streets a maze he barely registers. He parks outside a weathered brick building, its windows fogged, the hum of life seeping through the walls. He climbs the stairs, his breath visible in the cold hallway, and stops at her door. Number 4B. He raises his hand to knock, then hesitates, fear gripping him. What if she slams the door? What if she's moved on? What if Ethan? His mind spins, but he knocks, the sound sharp in the quiet. The door opens, and there she is. Elena, in a worn sweater, her hair loose, her eyes widening at the sight of him. Michael, she says, her voice a mix of shock and something deeper, something that makes his heart race. She steps back, her hand on the door, as if ready to close it. What are you doing here? He takes a breath, his voice low, urgent. I had to see you. Elena, I remember. The storm, the night at my place, the cufflink. He pulls it from his pocket, holding it up, its silver glinting in the dim light. Her face pales, her fingers tightening on the door. You shouldn't be here, she says, but her voice trembles, and he sees it, the crack in her armor, the truth she's guarding. Please, he says, stepping closer, his eyes locked on hers. I know I messed up. I wrote the number, I waited, but you never called. I thought you didn't want me. Her eyes flash, anger breaking through. I called, she says, her voice rising. I called until my fingers hurt, Michael. The number was wrong. 1 digit, and you were gone. The words hit him like a blow, stealing his breath. A mistake. A single digit, and 6 years lost. He staggers back, his hand on the wall, the cufflink burning in his palm. I didn't know, he whispers, his voice breaking. Elena, I swear, I didn't know. She shakes her head, tears glistening in her eyes, but she doesn't let them fall. It doesn't matter now, she says, her voice softer, heavier. I moved on. I had to. She starts to close the door, but he stops it, his hand gentle but firm. Wait, he says, his voice raw. There's more, isn't there? Ethan. Your son. Her breath catches, her eyes wide with fear, and he knows, before she says a word, that he's right. He's mine, isn't he? He asks, his voice barely audible, the question tearing at him. She stares at him, her silence louder than any confession, and then she steps back, pulling a photo from her pocket, a small, worn picture of Ethan, his hazel eyes unmistakable, a mirror of Michael's own. This is him, she says, her voice breaking, handing him the photo. Ethan. Your son. The world tilts, and Michael takes the photo, his hands trembling. Ethan's face, his smile, the crescent scar above his brow, it's like looking at his childhood, at himself. Why didn't you tell me? He asks, his voice hoarse, tears burning his eyes. I tried, she says, her voice a whisper. But you were gone, Michael. I was alone, pregnant, with nothing. I couldn't chase a ghost. He sinks against the wall, the photo clutched to his chest, the weight of her words crushing him. A son. A life he never knew, because of a mistake, a digit, a moment of carelessness. I'm sorry, he says, his voice shattered, but she shakes her head, stepping back. I can't do this, she says, her voice firm despite the tears. Not now. Not like this. She closes the door, the click final, leaving him in the hallway, the photo in his hand, the cufflink in his pocket, the truth a wound he can't close. He doesn't chase her, doesn't pound on the door. He's lost her before, and now he's lost her again, but this time, he knows what's at stake. He stumbles down the stairs, the snow falling heavier now, the city indifferent to his pain. He doesn't know she's leaning against the door, tears streaming down her face, Ethan's laughter echoing from the next room. He doesn't know the storm is far from over, that the truth is only the beginning. The snow outside Elena's apartment door swirls into darkness, and now it's days later, the Chicago winter of 2025 unrelenting, its cold seeping into every corner of Michael Lancaster's world. His penthouse, once a fortress of glass and steel, feels like a hollow shell, its vast rooms echoing with silence. Michael, 35, sits on the edge of a leather couch, the city's lights sprawling below, indifferent to the storm inside him. The photo of Ethan, his son, rests on the coffee table, its edges worn from his constant touch. Those hazel eyes, the crescent scar above the brow, stare back at him, a mirror of his own childhood, a truth he can't escape. The cufflink, Elena's cufflink, sits beside it, its silver dulled by years of secrets. Since the moment she closed her door, leaving him in that dim hallway, Michael's life has unraveled, his empire of wealth and power reduced to ash in the face of what he's lost. He hasn't gone to the office, hasn't answered calls. His phone lies silent, its screen dark, the world of deals and deadlines a distant hum. He's replayed her words, I called until my fingers hurt, Michael. The number was wrong, until they're carved into his mind, each one a cut deeper than the last. A single digit, a careless mistake, and he missed 6 years of her, of Ethan, of a life he didn't know he could want. He sees her face, the pain in her eyes, the way she held herself together even as she broke. He sees Ethan's photo, the boy's smile, and it's like a knife, twisting with every breath. He's a father, and he never knew. The weight of it is crushing, a grief he's never felt, not even when he lost his parents, not even when he built his empire alone. He stands, pacing the room, his reflection ghost-like in the windows. He's spent years being untouchable, a man who commands respect, fear, but never love. Now, he's just a man, flawed, broken, haunted by a night he let slip away. He remembers her laughter by the fireplace, her dreams of a bakery, the way she saw through his armor to the person beneath. He remembers the wedding, her shy smile when he gave her the cufflink, a moment he thought was nothing but now knows was everything. He picks up the photo, his thumb tracing Ethan's face, and whispers, I didn't know. It's a plea, a prayer, but there's no one to hear it. Elena's gone, her apartment empty when he sent Carl to check, her absence a wound he can't heal. He sinks back onto the couch, the photo in his hands, and lets himself feel it, the regret, the shame, the longing. He's been a fool, chasing power while the only thing that mattered was out there, growing up without him. He thinks of Ethan, of the boy's life, bedtime stories, scraped knees, questions about a father who wasn't there. He thinks of Elena, raising him alone, her strength a rebuke to his weakness. He's failed them both, and the realization is a fire, burning away the man he was. He can't go back, can't undo the years, but he can try. He has to. Not for redemption, not for forgiveness, but because Ethan deserves a father, and Elena deserves the truth of his heart. He grabs his coat, the photo tucked into his pocket, the cufflink in his fist. He drives through the snowy city, the streets quiet, the world asleep. He doesn't know where she is, her landlord said she left, no forwarding address, but he starts where he last saw her, the bakery. It's closed, its windows dark, but he knocks, his breath fogging in the cold. A janitor answers, an older man with tired eyes. "She's gone," he says, recognizing Michael's desperation. "Quit a few days ago." Didn't say where. Michael's heart sinks, but he presses on, asking for anything, a note, a hint. The janitor hesitates, then pulls a small envelope from a drawer. "Found this in the break room," he says. "It's got your name on it." Michael's hands tremble as he opens it. Inside is a single sheet, Elena's handwriting neat but hurried, "Michael, I'm not running because I hate you. I'm running because I can't hope anymore. Ethan's my world, and I have to protect him. Don't look for us. You're free." The words are a blade, cutting through him, and he leans against the bakery's wall, the snow soaking his coat. She's letting him go, but it's not freedom, it's exile. He reads it again, her words searing, and realizes she's wrong. He's not free. He's bound to her, to Ethan, to the family he didn't know he had. He tucks the note into his pocket, next to Ethan's photo, and makes a vow, he'll find them, not to force his way in, but to show them he's changed, that he's ready to be the man they need. He drives to every place he can think of, the diner where she once worked, the daycare Ethan attended, the park she mentioned in passing 6 years ago. Each is a dead end, but he doesn't stop, his resolve growing with every mile. The city is vast, unforgiving, but he's no longer the man who let her slip away. He's a father, a man in love, and he'll search every corner of this earth if he has to. The snow falls heavier, the night stretching on, and he whispers to himself, "I'll find you, Elena. I'll find our son." He doesn't know she's out there, in a new apartment, holding Ethan as he sleeps, her heart torn between fear and the faint hope that Michael might be different now. He doesn't know their paths are circling, closer than ever, the truth a beacon pulling them together. For now, he drives, the photo and cufflink his only guides, the city a map of hope and regret. The snowy Chicago night Michael drives through softens, and now it's a quiet afternoon weeks later, the winter of 2025 loosening its grip, the city bathed in a pale, fragile sunlight. Snow still dusts the sidewalks, but the air carries a hint of spring, a promise of something new. Michael Lancaster, 35, walks through a small park on the city's west side, his coat unbuttoned, his steps slow but purposeful. The photo of Ethan, his son, is in his pocket, worn from weeks of searching, its edges soft from his touch. The cufflink, Elena's cufflink, rests beside it, a twin to the one he wears, a silent vow he's carried since the truth broke him open. He's been everywhere, her old apartment, the bakery, every diner and daycare he could find, but Elena and Ethan have vanished, leaving only whispers of their presence. Yet he hasn't stopped, driven by a need deeper than ambition, a love he's only now learning to name. The park is modest, its paths winding past bare oaks and wooden benches, children's laughter echoing from a playground. Michael comes here often, drawn by a faint memory of Elena mentioning a place like this, where she'd sit and dream as a girl. It's a long shot, but hope is all he has, a fragile thread he clings to. He scans the faces, mothers pushing strollers, kids chasing pigeons, but sees no one familiar. His heart sinks, the familiar ache settling in, but he keeps walking, his breath visible in the cool air. He's changed since that night at her door, since the truth of Ethan shattered his world. The billionaire who commanded empires is gone, replaced by a man who knows loss, who understands what matters. He's canceled deals, stepped back from his company, his life now a single purpose, to find them, to be the father Ethan deserves, the man Elena once believed in. He stops at a bench, its wood worn smooth, and sits, the photo in his hands. Ethan's smile, so like his own, is a quiet accusation, a reminder of years lost to a single wrong digit. He thinks of Elena's note, asterisk don't look for us. You're free asterisk, and the pain of it still cuts, but he's not free. He's bound to them, to the family he didn't know he had, and he'll search until he finds them, not to claim them but to offer himself, flaws and all. The park hums with life, and he watches a boy kick a soccer ball, his laughter bright, and for a moment, it's Ethan, running toward him, calling his name. But it's not, and Michael closes his eyes, the weight of his mistakes heavy on his shoulders. Then, a small voice breaks through. Mister, you dropped this. Michael opens his eyes, and there's a boy, no more than 6, holding out a pen that must have slipped from his pocket. His hazel eyes sparkle, a crescent scar faint above his brow, and Michael's breath stops. Ethan. It's him, unmistakably, his face a mirror of the photo, of Michael's own childhood. Thank you, Michael says, his voice rough, taking the pen, his hands trembling. Ethan tilts his head, curious. You look sad, he says, and the words are so simple, so pure, they pierce Michael's heart. I'm okay, he lies, his eyes locked on the boy, drinking in every detail, the freckles on his nose, the way his scarf is tied loose. I'm Ethan, the boy says, unprompted, and Michael's throat closes, tears burning behind his eyes. Before he can speak, a shadow falls across the path, and Elena steps forward, her coat wrapped tight, her dark hair catching the sunlight. Ethan, come here, she says, her voice soft but firm, her eyes meeting Michael's with a mix of shock and wariness. She's 31, her face etched with the strength of years alone, but there's a softness too, a flicker of something that might be hope. Michael stands, the photo and cufflink heavy in his pocket, his heart pounding. Elena, he says, his voice barely audible, and she stops, Ethan's hand in hers, her gaze searching his face. The park fades, the children, the pigeons, the distant hum of the city, leaving only them, 3 threads of fate finally woven together. I didn't expect to see you, she says, her voice steady but laced with something raw. Ethan looks between them, curious, sensing the weight of the moment. He dropped his pen, Mama, he says, and Elena nods, her eyes never leaving Michael's. I've been looking for you, Michael says, his voice breaking, the words spilling out. Every day, every hour. I'm so sorry, Elena. For the number, for not finding you, for everything. She flinches, her grip tightening on Ethan's hand, but she doesn't pull away. It's too late for sorry, she says, but her voice wavers, and he sees the crack in her armor, the pain she's carried as long as he has. He steps closer, his hands open, no longer the billionaire but a man stripped bare. I didn't know about Ethan, he says, his eyes on the boy, who's watching with wide, curious eyes. But I know now, and I want to be there, for him, for you, if you'll let me. Elena's eyes glisten, tears she's held back for years threatening to spill. You don't know what it was like, she whispers, her voice raw. Raising him alone, wondering if you cared, if you even remembered me. Michael's chest aches, the truth of her words a wound he can't heal. I remembered, he says, pulling the cufflink from his pocket, holding it out. This. You. That night. I never forgot, even when I didn't understand why. She stares at the cufflink, her breath hitching, and takes it, her fingers brushing his, a spark that pulls them back to the storm, the fireplace, the moment they were whole. Ethan tugs at her coat. Mama, is he the man from your stories? He asks, and Elena's face softens, a tear slipping down her cheek. She kneels, pulling Ethan close, and looks at Michael, her eyes no longer guarded but open, vulnerable. He might be, she says, her voice a whisper, and Michael kneels too, level with them, his heart full and breaking all at once. I don't deserve you, he says, his voice thick, either of you. But I'm here, Elena, and I'll keep being here, every day, until you trust me again. Or even if you don't. She doesn't speak, but her eyes hold his, and in them, he sees forgiveness, not complete, not yet, but a start. Ethan reaches out, touching Michael's hand, his small fingers warm, and says, "You look like me." Michael laughs, a choked, tearful sound, and nods. "I do, buddy. I really do." Elena stands, helping Ethan up, and Michael rises too, the distance between them no longer a chasm but a step. She doesn't promise forever, doesn't say they'll be a family, but she takes his hand, her touch light, deliberate, and says, "One day at a time." It's enough. More than enough. The park comes back into focus, the children's laughter, the soft crunch of snow, and they walk together, Ethan between them, his hands in theirs, the cufflinks a quiet bond, the photo no longer a ghost but a promise. The city stretches out, no longer vast and unforgiving but a place where they might heal, where love might grow again, one careful step at a time.